In this unit, we will talk about machine translation, known as MT. We will start by defining machine translation and discussing how it differs from translation performed by humans. Then, we will introduce and explain the main historical steps in the development of MT, from the Cold War until the latest systems called neural. Next, we will explain the principles behind rules-based machine translation, as well as the more recent, corpus-based varieties of MT, for example, statistical and neural machine translation. Current professional uses of MT will be presented before dealing with what the general public does with MT. Finally, we will discuss how to assess the impact of MT. First things first, what is machine translation? According to Kenny, it can be defined as translation performed by a computer program. But let's not forget that it still has a lot to do with human translation. Indeed, human translation is still central in MT. First, it is a key ingredient in training proficient MT systems. Second, human translation is also key to the production of reliable assessments of MT. Now, as with all technologies, background knowledge on the history of MT and general knowledge on how MT works can help users to develop critical skills and to use MT wisely. So what do you need to know? There are three main steps in the history of MT. First, pioneering work was done in the 1950s, when the United States invested a lot in the development of a technology that was seen as key in the Cold War. Then, commercial systems started developing a few decades later, leading up to statistical machine translation. And the last step occurred in 2016, when deep learning was used to produce what is known as neural machine translation. What do we learn from history? We see that interests have changed from the states and the military to companies, but that throughout history, the technology has never developed autonomously for its own sake. The theory that technologies have a life of their own is called technological determinism. And the key lesson from history is that technological determinism should be avoided, as Maud Olohan brilliantly explained in her paper from 2017. Technologies don't develop autonomously. Instead, MT is a social construction. It occurs in a specific context and in our current economies. Funding is allocated when specific needs are identified. Understanding how MT works also helps demystifying the technology. Thus, the explanations given here are aimed at helping users reach beyond the hype about miracles and human parity that MT has been said to reach lately. Here you will learn about the first attempts at creating MT systems that were mostly based on a series of rules. We will also explain that MT became much better when the systems started to be based on translation data. For example, allowing source text and their translations, also known as parallel corpora. This is what the statistical MT and neural MT have in common. But we will see that the data is processed very differently. In the next section, we will discuss what tools are used currently by professional translators, with an overview of their advantages and limitations. Then, we will present translators' perceptions of MT as a time saver, whose seamless integration in CutTool has helped a lot, but with an important side effect. Increased cognitive load is often reported by translators who use MT. Because MT is a technology that has become ubiquitous in many people's lives, we will discuss current uses of free online machine translation and focus on a survey recently conducted in Swiss universities, as it contains striking examples of recent changes. One key point is that MT is ubiquitous, but hardly ever discussed. Other authors even spoke recently of MT as the elephant in the classroom. Finally, we will stress the need for assessment for MT's impact and for addressing the main ethical questions that MT raises. Assessment of what MT does to translation has already been achieved in some contexts. For general users, however, a lot remains to be done. General ethical questions on MT concerns are, for example, the basis inherent in current MT systems, the lack of fairness that they introduce, as well as the environmental impact of high energy consumption systems. Here are the references for this presentation, but you will find many more as you continue to explore all materials. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. You can complete this introduction with the materials available in this unit. See you in the next video.